And so I wanted to share these slides with you in a reflective manner so that all of you can go through them carefully and reflectively. Can we share that now, please? Yeah.
Coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Here we go.
All right.
There you are. Thank you. Thank you for your patience, sir.
All right. Fine. Thank you. So let's go. I'll read it reflectively with you. The next one, see. You know, this was isigaw mo sa hangin at tumindig upang magsilbing liwanag sa dilim. During the campaign, this became a hymn of hope. And that's why I wanted to start off with this refrain. Go ahead. As I listened to the refrain from the campaign's Hymn of Hope during the Thanksgiving rally at the Ateneo's Loyola campus, my thoughts flashed back to an unforgettable experience as a human rights advocate of Amnesty International. Dawn comes even after darkest night. Some 4 decades ago, in the Latin American country of Colombia, the setting for the novelist Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. I led an Amnesty International mission to the country as it reeled from numerous human rights violations under a draconian security statute. In a cold and damp cell in Popayan, in the Cauca Valley, in the southern part of the country, the Amnesty International team visited leaders of the Indigenous Council who were jailed for their beliefs. I spoke with the leader who carried fresh bullet wounds in his flesh. In the midst of his suffering, he was brave and defiant. And when I asked him if his struggle retained its meaning, even while he suffered stoically in his cell, he uttered the phrase that has remained with me till this day. Aún amanece en la noche más oscura. Dawn comes even after darkest night. Hope begins with belief. Hope indeed begins with self-belief, in belief in a cause larger than oneself, in a dream that refuses to die. Even as a student, I had always been consumed by the search for the meaning of hope. I recall reading Letters for Olga, written by the dissident playwright Václav Havel, who became president of then Czechoslovakia. Hope, he intoned, was finding meaning in one's work and life. Thus, it was for many of us who continued to struggle against martial rule when so many of our companions fell in the night. I also recall the injunction of the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, who urged that hope is the passion for the possible. This understanding led me to believe that hope is more than just optimism or the wish for better times to come.
Huh?
Yes, okay. On the contrary, hope is the belief that a new day is possible because we strive to make it happen. Since my days as a student, this bedrock principle has guided my journey. Together, we can build a future that is newer and better, overcoming the pitfalls of a past that has been largely unjust as it imposes cruel conditions on the shoulders of the more vulnerable. Hope for this hour. But the philosopher who captivated my thoughts was Martin Buber, who explored the depths of dialogue and examined the relationship between trust and truth. In a landmark lecture in 1952, delivered during the height of the Cold War, some 70 years ago at Carnegie Hall, entitled Hope for This Hour, he urged the citizens of the world to push back against the forces of polarization. In brief, he called for urgent action. The hope for this hour depends upon the hopers themselves, upon ourselves. As we brace for a period of polarization occasioned by national elections that had been mired by lies and misinformation, fake news and hate magnified by the manipulation of media, it is incumbent upon us to remember this. Though many things divide us, nevertheless, we are fellow citizens of one nation. We are brothers and sisters in blood, forged by the sacrifice of our forebears, Filipinos all. Courage begets hope. When I was working with the peace-building organization International Alert, I had shared with my colleagues the idea that peacemaking requires a marathon mentality. Since returning to the Philippines, I have realized that the efforts to bring about profound social change here at home is somewhat similar, more akin to a marathon in the mud. The national elections, which recently took place, will always be contested and will test our resolve to build a better country based on truth, on the recognition of the harsh facts of our history, and on the acknowledgement of our people's efforts to right the wrongs that have been inflicted on the disadvantaged in our midst, in our country. It was Alfred Lord Tennyson who ended his epic poem Ulysses with the lines, "To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield," which is another way of saying that we need the courage to hope. For hope will not come without a price and without heroic efforts from ordinary people like you and me, linking arms across different divides of generation, gender, and class, never ever giving up. The last thing we can afford to surrender is our capacity to hope. Isigaw mo sa hangin at tumindig upang magsilbing